done absolute justice to some of the dynamics of idealist and realist perspectives and theories on the new world order. Thank you so much, sir. So I now hand over the mic to the third discussant, the person of Dr. Nurinu, who will be also be examining the new world order as it affects Africa. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir.
Actually, I'm going can I start? Like the first time. The first example, every represented by the director, the dean of environmental studies, the director of the provost of college of health sciences, the dean faculty of arts, Professor Peniston Ibidua, other eminent professors here present, the director of the LAUTECH Institute of Cultural Studies, Professor Odebebi, our professor, the chief man of the school, Professor Tijani, Dr. Olariwaju, co-discussions, other prominent members of this house, of the greatest Nigerian students. We have listened to my colleague taking us to the world stage. And the first question I think to come to our mind is that what is the place of Africa in all this narration? And why are we occupying the space we are occupying today? What are the factors responsible for it? What are the underneath factors that make us to be where we are today? Because the world is like a big stage where we have dramas being performed by USSR, by Germany, by America, by Britain, by China, by even India today. But Africans, countries, we are mere spectators, audience in this drama being played out. So the perspective I'm going to look at it is that what are the factors responsible for this? Where are we coming from? Where we are? How do we move from our starting point today to where Africa is supposed to be? And I start by looking at the reality of Africa. And I discovered that we can't talk about the state of Africa today in the world politics without talking about the history of Africa itself, as was being mentioned by Professor Tijani, the history of colonialism, the history of slavery, the history of imperialism, the history of bad governance, the history of over-dependency on world power for age, for food, for toothpick, for best, everything. And the theory that I'm going to apply are two. Number one, social Darwinism and Marxism. If you understand Marxism and this theory, and even existentialism can be applied. Because in the world today, Africa should not expect the bigger countries of the world to come and bail us out of our predicaments. Why? Because everybody is here to look for a means of survival, and that is what Darwinism is talking about. And apart from that, if you look at Marxism as was being propounded by Hamas and his friend Frederick Engel, it talks about a world that is structured and based on exploitation of the poor by the rich. And that is why today, if you look at Africa today, Africa has always been a country that is being explored and exploited by the world powers. So it is a kind of a power struggle between the strong and the weak. And before I forget, let me tell you what determines who have what and how is nothing but power. And we are talking about power. We are not just talking about the intellectual prowess. We are talking about the power of God. Whoever that has God has the power. Look at colonialism. When the colonial masters came, they came with two things. They came with a gun, they came with guns, they came with the Bible. The essence of the Bible is just to pacify people. While they are pacifying the mind of the people, the military power is coming at the back, to suppress any act of insurgency. So Africa has passed through that level of colonialism. And through colonialism, we should know that a lot of things happen. We have the Portuguese, the first people arrived in the 15th century. We have the British, we have the French, and so on. Taking West Africa for instance now, the West Africa was being colonized mostly by the French people and the British people, under the policy of indirect rule by the British and the policy of assimilation by the French. So, if you look at this two colonial rule, it was meant to exploit Africa and to downplay the reality of our culture. So during that period, we had the Frenchification of African people. That is, the French people wanted Africans to look exactly like the French. And even the indirect rule, if you read Akintola by the French author, you will discover that most of the things this writer talk about is that even the education they gave us was nothing but colonial education. Education that will make us to be able to read, right? And nothing more that will make us to be technologically advanced. And since we have not been able to move from that stage of that colonial education, even up to now, that is why Africa today cannot play any reasonable role or with any power in international politics. Then capitalism, I won't be able to stretch more about this. Capitalism is an economic system that is based on exploitation. The exploitation of the poor people by the rich. Then I also talk about socialism as was being provided by Kamas talk about social structure. That in every human society, we have two types of people. We have the bourgeoisie, the rich people, and the proletariat. And the work of the bourgeoisie is to exploit the labor of the proletariat. And if you take that higher to international politics, you will discover that up to today, Africa is still being enslaved, either directly or indirectly. The only state we stop is the state of extraction. We extract gold in Zambara. We extract oil in Delta. We are still at that level. And those who determine the price of all those things that were extracted from Africa are still the world power. Everything we have, our human resources, our natural resources are being directly or indirectly being controlled by the West. Now, without the calling you, in all this, as African people not been docile? No. At inception, in the 1960s, after independence, some African countries they came together and talked on how to chart a new way for Africa. And they formed three groups. They formed the Casablanca group, they formed the Moreover
and the Brazzaville
group, and the Brazzaville group. The one that was more radical at that time was the Moreover group, led by Egypt and Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana. And what that actually was actually talking about there was that they want Africa that would be entirely and completely controlled by the African people. Unfortunately today, that dream has not been realized. Why? Because of our colonial experience. Most African countries are still following, their colonial master. If you talk about Nigeria today, it's either we go to USA or we go to China or we go to the British. And at any time we hear or we think that we do not follow that footpath, the repercussion of it is what we are experiencing today in Zamfara. and so on and so forth. So after that, we have Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism was established again, championed by Kwame Nkrumah, to unite African people. That if you can speak with one voice and you can think about technological and educational advancement of our continent, definitely Africa will have similar power that will be able to make them to compete, to negotiate, to participate in the world politics. Now, part of the problem of Africa was the scrap of oil Africa, where Africa was divided by colonial power, and that was really what the imperialism. So, the latter part of my paper talk about the Africa in the multipolar world. The first thing I was saying is that what is the multipolar world? Multipolar world is a world where we have different powers controlling the world. Before it used to be the socialist bloc and the capitalist bloc. But today we have different power. China is the world power, and somebody has mentioned that. India, in terms of technological advancement, is no longer a third country, but advancing towards becoming a strong world power. What makes all this to happen is simple technological advancement. And this is the is that if Africa must compete very well in the competition of the nation of the world, then we have to develop ourselves technologically. We must shun corruption. We must seek for good leadership. Now, Africa, what are those things that the challenges we have in international politics? I think I've mentioned them. The greatness of foreign aid, even we have to do those. Bad leadership, military involvement of foreign countries, like the one we saw in Sokoto of Emergent, or equal trade relationship. If we want to sell our oil now, America will go. They are the one that tell us how much they are going to buy our crude oil from us. And after the oil is being refined, they are still the same people that will tell us the price they are going to sell it for us. And that is why, if one notice, the challenge that Nigeria is having in America is because of perseverance with their with our taking with them. Because Nigeria now is deliberately now going through China. If you look at what we do now, we are moving more towards China to the detriment of America. Again, one of the new policies we have now is that they are saying that oil is now be bought through Naira and not dollar. All these are not available to America. And that is why Nigeria was to blackmail and tag the country of a particular concern. All this word that they are coming helping us, they are not helping us our own game. They are helping us so that they can take up the entire country, exploit our natural resources, and use it to their own advantage. Don't forget social Darwinism. Everybody for himself, and it is only those that are fit that actually supposed to survive. And since Africans are not fit, they are not likely to survive in international politics. Now, other things that we have done, we have organized resistance, we have formed an ideological group, and so on and so forth. We have mobilized our community. Our resistance, we have it in Kenya, Mozambique, Angola, mass political movement, we have it in Tanzania, Ghana, Pan-Africanists as moved by Egypt and from of Ghana, and so on. Now, what are the way forward for African international politics? Number one, we must be awakening the African consciousness, the Pan-Africanism that was being preached at the beginning of the 1960s. Number two, we should prioritize it. In Africa, you discover that we don't look at things that unite us. up to the family level. We look at those things that divide us. And when there is a single crack in us, either between countries and what I call between a nation, that is how this is and what power will come and penetrate. So there was unity. There was the unification of language. And people are asking, what language are we going to use? Is it Hausa? Is it English? Is it Arabic? But if anybody asks me, in the whole of East Africa, the language they speak here is Swahili. And it's one of the most spoken language in the whole of Africa. So if somebody to ask me, we must unify the language, and Swahili might be the answer to that unification of language. Then global black consciousness. We have black Africans that are working, that have progressed in terms of technological advancement. There might be a need for us to come together and chart a new way for Africa. The topic is very heavy, it's very expansive, but let me just stop here because of our time. The summary of my discussion is that for Africa to participate in world politics economically, socially, and politically, we must have unification purpose. We must have a common language, Swahili, for instance, and we must always speak against corruption and bad leadership. Thank you so much.
That was a very comprehensive and robust presentation on the topic. He has provided answers to a major question: why Africa is a spectator in the global power bargaining system, and that's a very good one. He has also provided the way forward. That's the most interesting component of his paper. How Africa can get out of this spectator status and assume some rules in terms of power play in the global system. Thank you very much for that lovely presentation. So, this is an open conversation. It's an open conversation, and we expect reactions, interventions, and questions from everyone there. So, I will take some of the reactions now. We understand that rule, but because of time limit, we really have to be very fast about it. So, we now take reactions, interventions, comments, and questions from us. Let's indicate if you have questions, reactions, or comments. Let's indicate. Okay, I take Professor Olayi as number 1, Dr. Oyewole number 2, Mr. Eso number 3, Dr. Ogbomoso